Located 3 kilometres east of Eugowra along the Escort Way is Escort Rock, where, on the 15th of June 1862, Frank Gardner and his gang of bushrangers pulled off the biggest gold robbery in Australian history.
Interesting that the chair of the Heritage Council that was the official guest at the reenactment in 1962 said, "We're not here to celebrate the lives of criminals, but to remind ourselves that bushrangers were very much a part of life." And they were all young men, and there weren't too many jobs for young men in 1862. So some of them got a job as a drover or mining some livestock or something. On a bad day, well, you probably could get the sack and you had nothing. So some of them became bushrangers, but obviously they were very skilled horsemen and they understood the bush. And the road wasn't where it is now because there's a culvert over the gully. So the road followed the edge of the hill, and the rock where the bushrangers held up the coach is up there, the 200 and something yards.
Wow. The robbery was relatively easy. At midday every Sunday, a coach and horses owned by Ford & Co., later to be Cobb & Co., headed off from Bray's Great Eastern Hotel in Lachlan Street, Forbes, to transport gold to the larger centre of Bathurst. This was an official shipment which was transported by coach driver, accompanied by 4 police troopers. At Escort Rock, the track narrowed and made its way up around a gully. It was the perfect place for an ambush. There were 3 large granite boulders where men and horses could hide, and the steepness of the track meant the coach had to slow down and it could not speed up to escape. To improve their chances of success, the gang managed to stop 2 bullock teams in the middle of the track. They forced the bullock drivers to lie down beside the road and act as though they were drunk or asleep. When the gold escort reached Escort Rock, the driver, Jack Fagan, called out to the bullockies to move their teams off the road, and, with the escort brought to a halt, Gardner and his gang attacked. The driver jumped from the coach and ran for the bushes. The horses, frightened by the gunfire and the shouting, reared up, bolted, and the coach tipped over on its side. The 4 troopers followed the driver, escaping down the hill towards Eugowra homestead. The driver's hat was shot off his head, and 1 trooper was shot in the testicles. The bush rangers loaded the gold and cash onto one of the coach horses. They retrieved their horses, which had been hidden in the bush, and headed off. They stopped at Noble's Lagoon to redistribute the gold more evenly on the other horses.
And there's a creek, Mandatory Creek down here.
Yeah.
And there was a homestead down there a bit that rode off to Forbes to get the police after the robbery in 1862. And people ask, where is the gold? Well, more than half of the gold that was stolen was recovered in the first few days. They used the coach horses to carry the gold away on, and the horses that they were riding were the best horses, police horses, and the police were catching them. So they had to let go of the coach horses that were carrying gold, and so the police got all that back in the first couple of days. And then they split it up amongst themselves, and there was a couple of them riding down toward West Wyalong, and the police got them too and whatever. But people think the gold might be buried here, but I haven't found it. So I think they would have had mates and girlfriends, and it would be long spent. I have maintained an unlocked gate, and provided that the gate they've got a walk through, it pretty well always gets closed, but it was when they could drive through that it would always be open and my cattle would get out. It's overgrown in there, but I've put cattle in the paddock, and cattle come round here and camp on here at night, so they'll graze it down a bit. The member of the Heritage Council was here, and she said, well, have a more descriptive. So I've written what is on there with another fellow, and the council, Common Council and the Forbes Council shared the cost of this. And we can all see that Frank Gardner lived to be 74, But he spent 10 years in jail in Australia before the public demanded that he be released, and he was released on the proviso that he doesn't continue to live in Australia. I think he went to China initially, but he ended up in America and married a rich woman and did quite well.
Still got the gold.